Hey everybody, we're fragrance lovers and we're frag heads. Welcome back. It's Benjamin here at the Scented Tart Fragrance channel, coming back at you, of course, with more fragrance reviews, more fragrance content. Let's talk about a new upcoming brand. This brand's called Divona. This is one of their fragrances called Embers. Now, I do have to say that this brand did send me these samples for review, all of them, and I'm very happy to be able to put reviews out there on these fragrances. I'm the first one to do so as far as I know, and I'm very happy to represent this brand and, share some love to them. So definitely check them out if if this sounds interesting to you at all. But I want to be 100% transparent and honest with y'all about getting these samples for free. So anyways, let's talk about this fragrance. They describe all of their fragrances with, three kind of characteristics to them. And this one's called Independent, Perseverant, and Optimistic. So we have a fragrance that's supposed to describe or embody the feeling of being independent and strong and optimistic, and some really positive characteristics. We have notes of citrus, peach, raspberry, apple, rose, jasmine, violet, herbs, lily, musk, vanilla, smoke, and pine. I do have to say that this fragrance is a very nice fragrance. All the fragrances from this house are very wearable, very easy to wear, 24/7, all year long. This one is a little bit more on the darker side. A lot of their fragrances are very fresh and light and happy, and this is one of those that's a tiny bit on the dark side, but it's not a dark fragrance really whatsoever. It just has a little touch. Overall, to me, the raspberry really doesn't come through really at all. I really don't detect much of the raspberry. Sure, there's citrus. I don't really. The peach doesn't stand out. Um, I guess I do detect the apple a little bit. There is jasmine, but it's so small. It just really, of course, jasmine helps round out fragrances and adds a little bit to that airiness. It can be. It's not really a dry note. Jasmine to me is usually kind of watery, but it still is usually more of a top note of things, or maybe even a heart note. Violet's here, adding a little bit of its fresh, but still somewhat like powdery airiness to the fragrance. The lily to me really stands out. I don't know if it's intentional, if it's supposed to be the style of Divona fragrances, but a lot of Divona fragrances have a lot of lily, a really heavy amount of lily come through in the fragrance, and it really makes itself known. To me, the lily in a lot of these Divona fragrances are a little bit more powdery. It's a little bit soapy in a way. It makes it very clean, and it makes it very easy to wear. The vanilla is in the dry down, but again, the Divona vanilla is very light and airy. It's not heavy. It's not particularly sweet. And the smoke here is very, very light. It's just the smallest touch of smoke. If you're very sensitive to smoke and maybe you want a smoky fragrance, this could work for you. For a fragrance called Ember, if you know what embers are, like after if you made a campfire and after the fire goes and you have those coals, those like burning little nuggets of they're called embers. That to me, when I think of those, I think of like a vibrating energy, like a vibrating heat. I think of something that's a little bit smoky, but I think of something vibrating and something that still is kind of has an echo to it, maybe a little bit dark. To me, this really doesn't smell that way. Again, maybe I'm a little bit more thinking on the niche side of things, but to me, if I was to capture the smell of an ember, it would be completely different. This one is fresh and light, easy to wear. A lot of lily. It's pretty soapy. This is it is pulsating. It is a little bit maybe on the dark side, but again, it's just so wearable. It's not really niche like or it's a very interesting concept, and I like the idea, but maybe the name doesn't work perfectly. But nonetheless, it's a good smelling fragrance. This is probably the most daring out of the Divona line that I've tried. A lot of them are pretty safe and pretty, again, easy to wear, but this one has a little bit more character. I would say that this is probably the most unisex of the bunch, even though that this is a brand made by ladies for ladies. This one probably is the most unisex. It's all right. It smells pretty good, but I do think that the other notes really don't stand up to the lily. I think the lily really dominates the composition, and I think that's a real shame because I think that this had a great name. I think that this had a good concept behind it, but again, the lily steals the show, and the concentration of the other notes aren't as high as I would like. And let's talk about the performance and longevity. For a fragrance that's supposed to be a little bit darker, maybe a little bit more smoky, this one actually doesn't last that long. It lasts about the same as a lot of the other ones do, 6 odd hours, projection being average or so, and the sillage being just all right as well. So overall, it's kind of an average performing fragrance. Um, the smoke doesn't last very long. If to me, in my opinion, if you're going to make a fragrance based on coals, it needs to have not an airy smokiness, but more of like a damp smokiness, or more of like a base note smokiness, maybe a smoky patchouli thrown in this fragrance. And I really do think that this fragrance could be something interesting, but the white florals just really throw me off. When I'm thinking of embers, I'm thinking of soot and smoke and ash. And what I'm smelling from this fragrance is white florals and soapiness and clean and fresh. And it's not what I'm looking for with this style of fragrance, I do have to say. But for some of y'all out there who might be very fussy or very touchy with smoky fragrances, this might be the very delicate amount of smoke that you perfectly wanted. Some lady out there might want something a little tiny bit daring, like put your just your pinky toe, and dabble in the water of something a little bit different, just a tiny bit. This fragrance dabbles in the more interesting side of things, just the tiniest amount, just very tiny amount. I dare say that this is as unique as kind of some of the designer fragrances out there. Anyways, interesting. I do think that this would be wonderful if this was a dark, smoky, ashy raspberry fragrance. This would be very interesting for sure. Anyways, not my favorite, but it is unisex though. So if you're a guy out there and maybe you're more confident wearing more floral fragrances or fragrances that might be considered traditionally feminine, if you want something from this brand, this is probably the one you might gravitate towards the most. Um, Interesting though. Compliment factor wise, I because this is leaning more on the unisex side, still feminine in my opinion. I was confident enough to go out there and wear this a time or two. People thought it was nice and it was fresh and a little bit interesting, but not overtly so. It didn't get me a lot of compliments. It didn't get me a lot of attention. Again, white florals never are a big compliment getter for me, and I usually don't gravitate towards the note of white florals. I think that white florals have fallen out of vogue, just like oak moss really has and lavender has. White florals just aren't a particularly popular note for people to smell, so this is not, I think, going to be a big compliment getter. It's not going to be overtly popular, but it does smell fresh and clean and inviting, but with a little bit of a twist. So, very nice for that kind of thing. But I much prefer Spark for being that clean, crisp, white kind of fragrance. And you'll see my review of Spark a little bit later on. I'm probably very happy. Probably that's one of my favorites from the brand. Anyways, price wise, y'all know that y'all can get a 1 ounce for $55 odd. Price wise, I think that they're a little bit high, but of course they do donate to women's causes from ladies who have been abused and went through a lot of hardships in their lives. And I think that that's a worthwhile thing. I also think that this brand is great because it is made by ladies and for ladies. I think that they make a lot of fragrances that fill a lot of gaps in the designer fragrance world. I think that if it possibly that designer fragrance brands are possibly going to pay attention to my reviews, and they might take some of the inspiration from Divona, because Divona really came out. They're not getting a lot of talk, they're not getting a lot of hype, but they came out swinging and they've released a lot of fragrances that fit a lot of gaps. And a lot of ladies, I feel, are out there looking for these kinds of fragrances with this kind of smell. So I think that a lot of ladies are going to love it. On the negative, I do think that if you're an experienced fragrance lover, if you are picky about fragrances, I think you are going to be able to detect that these fragrances, at least a lot of them, are a little bit more on the synthetic side of things. If you have a picky nose, a nose that has a lot of experience with fragrances, these aren't going to be probably fragrances for you. But if you're a lady out there who wants, a fragrance that's very wearable, very easy to wear, a compliment getter, light, fresh, and happy, with something a little bit different from what you can just get, at the mall, I think that this brand might be for you. But I'm not trying to hype them. I'm not trying to push them on you. I do think that their prices are a little bit high. But anyways, interesting brand, interesting fragrance. I'm very happy to be able to bring it to you today. I hope that you liked my review, and if you did, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share the video, and tell a friend. Hope that you enjoyed my video today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm doing my very best. Let me know how I'm doing down below. Let me know, do you like smoky fragrances? What's your favorite smoky fragrance? Have you ever tried a smoky fragrance? Let me know down there below. Wear what you love, rock what you got, my friends, and I'll see you next time, everybody, and bye.